Oh, I still have that coconut oil aftertaste in my mouth.
That's the worst taste ever. I hate coconut.
I like coconut oil, but when I'm not expecting or want it,
Yeah.
it's just like a weird thing that lingers. Okay, anyway. Welcome to X-Men Evolution.
Wait, you were
episode 6.
recording that?
Yeah.
Cool, I know what our cold open is.
Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 6 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod. I'm tired, but a little less tired because I'm hydrated now.
And I am JC. You can follow me on all socials at the John Carl, TheJohnCarle. And we also have links in our link tree that has every one of our stuff. I'm pretty sure I stole the name Expert from another podcast and they haven't yelled at us yet. So, Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we are going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode that we can find, along with other bonus episodes that may not actually be X-Men cartoons, but feature the X-Men. Our first series started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, which is building up to the release of X-Men 97, which at the time of this recording is still scheduled for later this year. Very specific by saying the time of this recording. But since we're not there yet, we need to find some other shows to cover.
Some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. And we're currently not sponsored or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. We're still on 2 of those trash fires. Of course, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast service. And if you want to support the show, we do have affiliate links in all of our uploads. The majority of those are for X-Men 92, between toys and resin statues and stuff. For X-Men Evolution, if you don't have Disney Plus and you want to buy the episodes, you'll give us a cool 4 to 5 cents per purchase on that.
Nice. We won't spend it all. We will spend it all at once because it'll probably just go straight to
how much you and I have put into production on this show to just pay back what our cost has been so far.
Yeah. So to get absorbed. That's nice. Now into the show. Today we're going to be talking about season 1, episode 6, titled Middleverse. It aired January 27th, 2001, and currently says a 6.9. Nice star rating on IMDb. And so, like we said, the last one was the last of the millennia, and this is the first, right?
Of this millennia, yes.
Yeah.
Any Marvel animated show, too. Not just of X-Men. It was
gotcha,
any shows running. This was the last of the previous millennia and then first of this one.
Nice.
And they were both a 6.9 rating, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah. Was the last one? I can't remember.
Sorry. You know what it was? Because when I edit the scripts, I take the ones from the previous recording. So as you as the lead host on this one, I think it was the previous one was also a 6.9 rating for your last hosted episode.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I was excited about this episode specifically because originally our mutual friend Scott wanted to be a guest on this one. However,
we could say who Scott is, right?
Yes, Scott from NerdSync. Scott Nice Wonder from NerdSync. However, he is very busy, like weeks away from getting married.
So selfish.
Yeah, right.
Scott, so selfish of you to not take time away from your wedding prep to be on our shitty podcast.
And I get it. I'm just a groomsman at that wedding, and I feel like I also have like a lot of planning to do. But he spoke very highly of this episode. He said it was one of his favorites, and so I was pretty excited to get into this. And also, once again, Nightcrawler always makes for a better episode.
I had no idea what to expect from the episode from the title. Yet again.
Yeah, I feel like even after watching it, I don't have 100% understanding of what was happening.
I get it now. I guess you didn't have to worry about like clickbaity episode titles like what we do in the modern era.
Yeah.
But I was like, what the fuck is Middleverse? I've heard of the Microverse. Those were things in Marvel. And we've heard of like the Mojoverse. But I was like, what the fuck is the Middleverse? And we got our answer. So
the best part is this so far is the most coherent title of an episode. We're only, 6 episodes in?
I don't know. I'd say we're 50-50. This is the most obvious.
Yeah.
The Rogue one I thought was good. And then the Blob one was like the fat shaming episode.
Oh, yeah. I guess there's that. But yeah, but this one actually was like, it was just straight up, this is the place we're going to go for the majority of the episode, even though we don't know what it is. But yeah, this episode, it opens up at Bayville High School. I'm starting to get used to the differences in the settings.
Yes.
Of the schools, because I'm currently editing like our 3rd or 4th episode right now. And
yep.
Every time we go to high school, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not Bayville. I get it wrong every single time.
Yeah, you were really thrown off that Raven Darkholme was not the principal in Chicago in the second episode.
Yeah. There's more. Like, there was something I was like, oh, didn't they destroy that thing there? Nope, that was another school. Okay. but I call them the X crew. I don't know, the X-Men crew that are at the high school.
The X-Men?
Yeah, the X-Men in incognito are sitting at lunch together, all talking about if they're going to go to Duncan Matthews' party, which I guess is the quarterback from the first episode.
Correct. The kid who is concussed with the crack in his helmet. That's he's finally recovered from that.
Yeah. So I guess if he's not a mutant in this series, they're just setting him up to be like the it guy. I don't know, the popular kid or something.
He is Freddie Prinze Jr. from She's All That to me.
Yeah.
That is his character, essentially.
And I like a little detail that they don't address directly, but if you're kind of paying attention, you kind of get Spike is chugging milk and he's taking everyone else's milk because presumably it takes a lot of fucking calcium to make all the bone spikes that he's throwing out.
Rod, you get internet bonus points because that was something that was mentioned in 3 of the 4 websites that we referenced for trivia.
Oh, nice.
And I know you don't do research, so props to you, because that was what was shared across those websites, and it said it was intentional to show the energy spent from his body to maintain what he's going through. The only thing I didn't like, they call it moo juice, and I was like, no teenager is actually going to say that.
Maybe you know what it gives is in the 90s, and once again, even though this is a 2001 show, this is probably like produced largely in the 90s.
It was easily written in the 90s.
Yeah, adults gauging what lingo for 90s kids was at the time. Like moo juice sounds like that.
But we also do get a joke about that later, which we'll come back to.
Yeah, and
not about moo juice, about kid slang.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and. No. Scott is quickly becoming the Scott we know.
This is the episode where he felt like our Scott.
So he's like, we shouldn't go because he gives a lot of reasons. One of the ones I took a note about was, what if someone gets too close to Kurt and feels his fur? And I guess just because it's a cartoon,
you forget the fur is there because they don't animate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also that it's a hologram. Yeah. Like, I don't think of it that way. I just think of it like, oh, he just transforms like Mystique or something. Mm-hmm. And then he this is a good point. He points at the other table because of course the other crew of kids is sitting together too. And he's like, what if they try to start something? Which is a
pretty likely scenario, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's why they're there. They're being gathered to start trouble with the X-Men.
What I did also like about the scene is Kitty's like, I want to go, and they're like, you can't go, you're a freshman.
Yeah. Which sets up what we thought before, where everyone else are, if not upperclassmen, at least not freshmen.
Right. So we get the confirmation that Kitty's the freshman. Kurt is either a sophomore or junior because he's still definitely younger than the other two. And then we know that Scott and Jean have to be either juniors or seniors because they are old enough to drive.
Jean and the rest of them. So this is how you know, like, you're being the fuddy-duddy in this, is that Jean is like, oh, we should go, and everyone's trying to convince him to go. Nightcrawler is just, he's trying to be, they're setting him up more and more to be the class clown.
Yes.
And so he gets up on the table, he starts dancing, and then I guess I don't know how this hologram watch works. His tail shows, and Scott's like, dude, chill.
I got the impression the tail never went away. Mm-hmm. It was mostly just like focused on disguising his hair and his skin and stuff like that, and that he was just always really good at like keeping it in his pants, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, totally different context, but
yeah.
And Kurt even, he stops. It's like his boundary was the tail. He's like, dude, you pulled my tail, which is funny because the way they animated Kurt is the same look. I remember when I first got Lucia, like, and she's a kitten, and she would like run away. I would try to catch her. I wasn't trying to grab her tail, but I tried to catch her, and she'd run, and I'd accidentally like get her tail for a second, and she would just stop and give me the same look that Kurt gave Scott. He's like, what the fuck? Obviously we don't have tails, and
right?
So it must just be a super like violating feeling,
Well, because isn't it, if you grab something with a tail and you grab it by the base, it's not as painful for them, but if you grab the end, it like hurts like hell?
Probably, yeah. And I'm not even completely sure if it's pain or if it's just because I know cats use their tails for balance. I'm assuming Nightcrawler is similar because he's so aerobic,
Yeah, when he's hanging from chandeliers to grab pancakes and such. Yeah. And then Kurt gets pissed and teleports away. One thing I did want to point out, just for sake of saying it, Quicksilver has already transferred over to the school and is sitting with the Bat Kids.
Yeah, he's already part of the crew. He assimilated right away.
Yeah.
And then my note here was Scott starts yelling. That's the Cyclops we know.
Yep. That is our Scott to a T right there.
One person that wasn't with the group of the villain crew was Rogue. We catch up with her. She's reading Dracula.
She's by herself, like under the trees, reading Dracula.
Next to like kind of an entrance to a basement that Kurt happens to teleport into, which I guess we get the feeling that he was just so flustered by the argument that he had with Scott that he didn't teleport to. Once again, just got lucky that he didn't teleport into a wall.
I don't think the cartoon is going to address the danger of him doing the unseen teleport. I get that vibe.
He ended up somewhere where he didn't expect to.
Yeah. But did you notice her reaction isn't based off the sound of the bamf, it's the smell.
Smell, yeah.
Which is the first time that that's been addressed, really.
Because did she say sulfur?
I don't remember if she said it or I inserted that in there, but she definitely gives a reaction with her face that there's a scent that is what attracted her attention.
And for whatever reason, if you don't know what sulfur smells like, it's rotten eggs. There's probably at least a little bit. I know it's not, and there's brimstone and stuff with Nightcrawler, but like
yes.
if it is a sulfur smell, there's like a little bit, at least an air of like a rotten egg thing or something.
If it's like sulfur coming out of the ground, yes, but it's not like the sulfur of fireworks. Like those are two different things. So I've been to like a hot springs when I was young, and I was lucky enough to go to Australia, and those smell like ass. They smell like filthy, horrible egg smells.
You just bathe in it.
No, these were the like, like your skin will rot off of you if you go into them. Yeah. These are like the not safe hot springs.
So you're saying it's exfoliating?
Literally not what I was saying.
So Kurt, he teleports into the basement room in a bunch of boxes, but because he didn't know where he was going, he like falls and he breaks his hologram watch.
And he starts glitching, which was a cool effect.
He glitches, and he eventually just completely gives out, and he goes completely blue again. He hears...
It's called going fur.
We're going furry, not a skin.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows it's Rogue, but he hears someone coming into the basement, so he panics and teleports through another set of doors that he sees in there.
Yeah, I got the impression he didn't know it was Rogue. I feel like if he knew it was Rogue, he would give fewer fucks because she has seen him teleport and such.
Yeah. And so he goes inside. This is just another one of those like 90s Y2K TV tropes that you just have to kind of suspend your disbelief for. There's like a lab in the basement that no one has explored for 30 years.
Behind a door that says stay out.
Yeah. And everybody's like, okay, cool. Yeah, it says stay out. So I'm just going to stay out. And it's basically like it looks like a control center.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
And even though all the control center stuff it doesn't look like it's operational, there's like a laser alarm thing that I guess he couldn't see or just didn't pay attention to because we could clearly see it. There's only bright red thing in that room.
I got the impression he wasn't paying attention. It's just because it's Kurt.
And he trips it, and then all of a sudden all the equipment turns on, and someone pops up on the screen, which I suspected who it was, but I didn't want to guess too early. But I was right. It's like something 1978.
January 22nd, 1978. And it looked like he was essentially like vlogging was the best way I could describe it. I did try to look up, and I didn't see anything that was significant around that day in particular. Literally the top result is if you search, January 22nd, 1978 X-Men, it references this episode.
Maybe it was just like either they picked it randomly or it was like somebody on set's like kid's birthday or something. Or whatever. And
I could not find a specific reference for that. So,
but then it says like self-destruct will initiate in 10 seconds.
Yeah, dude, like
it was really fast.
That's actually the only thing I consider like a plot hole in this episode was what was the point of setting a self-destruct in the lab?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he just didn't want people to find his research. I don't know. But the get out sign worked.
Yeah.
Or stay out sign worked.
Yeah, stay out worked for 20 something years. So yeah, because this aired in 2000. So let's assume he was, this was 99, 2000. So 21, 22 years basically.
And this is when Rogue is approaching. She's inside the basement. She's approaching the stay outdoors. And she's going to go in. But then it explodes. It throws her back. Kurt somehow doesn't die, even though he was like right next to it.
Yep. It was enough to blow like cases of the computers apart.
And the door open.
Yeah. Kurt is durable.
Right. And so is one piece of machinery they find while they're checking the stuff at the lab.
I put decimated lab, picks up the one unbroken thing.
Yeah. So Rogue picks it up at first, starts fighting Kurt for it.
Which Kurt got really defensive about that thing for no reason, I feel like.
Yeah, he didn't really have anything invested in that, I guess, other than it was Rogue. He just didn't want her to have it because he perceives her as like one of the villains or something.
Yeah, one of the bad kids. But I feel like they're bad kids, but they're not like full-fledged supervillains yet.
Yeah, yeah. They
Like, Toad is
disagree.
probably the biggest shitbag of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even he's not that bad. He's just kind of like Heath Ledger's Joker. He just kind of likes to see shit burn, see what happens.
I wouldn't really say that somebody is not that bad, followed by the description of being Keith Ledger's Joker. Personally,
What do I mean? Like, he's not trying to be like Magneto or something. He's just like, let's see what happens. You know?
yes, he's
Like
an
chaos.
agent of chaos. I would agree with that, but I would not say Ledger's Joker killed a shit ton of people. Let's be real. So,
I feel like though, and we see this in this episode, that Toad is not too far from that. Like, if it piques his interest, not specifically to kill people, but to just he's like, oh, what happened?
yeah, what happens if I do this? Yeah.
And in their tussle over this machine, it shoots Kurt, and I think Rogue straight up thinks she killed him.
She definitely thinks she killed him. No doubt. No doubt in my mind.
She's not very worried about. I mean, she's freaked out, but not like she's not.
She's not remorseful.
Yeah. So
I feel like this is like one of those like true crime stories of like, oh, there was an accidental murder and then a bunch of cover-up scenarios.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I just didn't get caught for 20 years and then finally the evidence popped up. So yeah, I did it. Like, I felt like she was very much in that kind of vibe.
And she drops the machine not because she feels bad. I got the vibe not because she felt bad about shooting Kurt, but that she didn't want to have happen to her. Whatever. Happened
Yeah, I think she just didn't want to like accidentally shoot herself with it.
Yeah. And then Kurt is in what he called the Twilight Zone, which I think was like a really good description because everything was like wavy and foggy and he couldn't quite tell what there were. And it looked like there were ghosts of people walking around, but you start realizing they were ghosts of current students, like the X-Men walk through.
And in like when it was the whole 78 thing, my thought was like, oh, did he get teleported back to 78? It was seeing like ghosts of 78. Yeah. But then I was like, those kids aren't dressed like 78. They're dressed as like the animated 2000 kids were. He sees Kitty walk by with Spike. They're literally talking about like, oh, both of them need to chill out. And he tries to touch Kitty and goes like right through her.
Yeah. So he's basically in the Upside Down for any Stranger Things fans. Is it's like the same world, but you're not occupying the same physical space.
Right.
In the real world.
Well, real quick, there are flashes where it was like I had to look like on like double tapping my space bar to get through it. But he like there's a flash, there's Rogue, there's the face on the screen, and then there was something that like I literally could not pinpoint it because of the way Disney's app works. Like you literally can't do like, you know, hit left or right to go one frame at a time, at least on the desktop version of it. And there was one thing I could not figure out what the fuck it was in that flash, but it was like 3 rapid fire images.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't notice that at all. It was just like flashing.
Yeah. Rogue's face and then the face from the monitor earlier. And then a third one, which
something
may have been Rogue and it was just closer, but I couldn't tell for sure.
Gotcha. Back in the real world, Toad is trying to eat a bug off the ground and almost gets run over by Mystique because it's on her parking space.
Yeah.
And
I literally wrote the exact same phrase.
Yeah. And then she's just like, you're not allowed to be around here. Not because it's a teacher's parking lot, but because she doesn't want him to drool on her car. Which kind of
is very valid.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that shit's got to be toxic.
Yeah, but also, like, if you buy a nice car, and this is a really gross kid, and, like, they've acknowledged several times that he smells.
Yeah.
So,
I'm amazed that, like, part of her, like, you know, rules of being on the bad kids club isn't just that, like, oh, if you don't shower more, I'm going to even kick you out of our fucked up group.
Right. It's like, you need to shower at least once a month.
Yeah.
And then
your teeth are way too yellow right now, sir.
Yeah, his tongue's green. And then we catch up with Rogue. This is a testament to like what we said earlier about how she didn't want to have happen to her what happened to Kurt. She's like, she has the machine at the end of a broom, and she's like walking
on the stick, yeah,
on the stick part.
Which let's be real, the size of that thing, that's got to be hard as shit to balance on like the edge of a broomstick.
It seems like it would be heavy, right?
Yeah, or just like uneasy, like if you like take a turn or go up a flight of stairs or something like that. Like, it's impressive, I guess, but. She tries to throw it out and just misses the trash can.
Yeah, because it's probably heavy.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, in our knowledge, she doesn't have that Carol Danvers energy now, right? So she's not strong.
Yeah, all we know is she absorbed Cody, she absorbed Nightcrawler, she absorbed Scott, and part of Blob too, right? Because that's what gave her the strength.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But they all seem to be like fleeting and disappearing. Like she hasn't done like the extended pull yet. So
to that little asterisk, I don't. Now that we're settled into 6 episodes of the show with all these kids, I don't think I want to see her put Carol Danvers into a coma in this series
again.
Well, just because like it's a kid, like I don't know, it seems like it'd be too dark for this show, you know. I mean, they'll probably do it. I don't know, but like I've gotten used to these being like accepting that these are teenagers, and I don't know if I want to see that kind of trauma happen.
What's funny is like the whole Carol Danvers thing. I always got the impression that happened when she was only like 19, and that's why she didn't have the control over her powers in X-Men 92. But the way that the animation studio worked, they didn't change enough about her to give the physical appearance change on it. They just changed the outfit because she did talk more like a kid in those early episodes.
Yeah, they definitely animated
or in that flashback of the episode. Yeah,
they definitely animated her more adult.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, that's another funny thing. Your HeroClix thing with the meme Wolverine on TikTok. I don't know if you've looked in the comments there. There's a couple guys arguing about what picture should be in that frame. And I think it's all a misunderstanding because someone made a joke of like, I guess they didn't see that there was a picture in there, so they thought that it was just blank or something.
Oh, yes, I did see that there was an argument going in there, and I think I just liked all of them, but I haven't been back in over a week. So
basically, like one of the guys was like, shame there isn't a picture of Rogue in there, and someone else tried to correct him. He's like, oh, it's actually Jean and Cyclops, and he's like, oh, that was the joke or whatever. But then I think the original person posted they meant like the booty shot of Rogue.
Oh, your favorite meme from the show.
Right?
The one that Joe Russo decided to research,
There's not a whole lot of research you have to do for it. That was all over the internet. It's like, wow, these animators...
Well, no, Joe was saying he needed to find an OnlyFans that replicated that shot, so...
Yeah. And there's probably 20 of them. So...
we were at a party with a few the other day, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Toad walks up right as the machine falls out of the dumpster, and he's just like, hey, what's this? And Rogue basically says, like, oh, I killed Kurt with that thing.
Yeah, she says, there's one less X-Men to push us around.
Yeah, which... they're very casual about it. Toad's not like, oh shit, man, you just like murked someone, man.
No, he was like, I don't know if he said cool, but he was definitely like okay with it, like zero hesitation. Picks it up and he shot the dumpster and it disappeared.
Right.
Which, thank God, he was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to stand on like the side that shoots. So
yeah,
he's not an idiot, at least.
And then in the hallway of the school and in the real world, Jean and Scott are talking, and Jean says that Scott should probably apologize to Kurt because he was being kind of a dick. And Scott's just like, but he's always playing around. And Jean's like, is that the worst thing a teenager could do? Basically, I mean, I forgot her actual words, but she was like,
it was like,
that's
it's not worth losing a friend over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also not a crime to be playful as a kid.
And also, like, here's the thing. I would get if they were on the battlefield of, like, something super dangerous and it happened. Mm-hmm. But it's like, he survived this long being fucking blue.
Right.
Of anybody, he's, like, the one who's, like, least worried about being in danger from all this shit. You're just a fucking douchebag with like a weird haircut.
Yeah. And so, Scott's like, oh yeah, maybe I was too hard on him. But they get interrupted because 2 students run out of the bathroom and they're like, oh my god, there's a ghost and it's blue and hairy. And Scott's like, see, motherfucking Nightcrawler or Kurt or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
he said motherfucking Kurt.
Right. You like my paraphrases of the show?
No, your paraphrases are great. I'm assuming it's literally the exact script when I hear it.
And they go to look for him, but he's not in there. And Scott's like, go find him.
Also, again, boundaries. Jean runs into the men's room.
Right. And Scott's like, go find him. And so I don't know what her range is. It seems like it's pretty far because they do the school, they do like the mansion, they do some.
Yeah, it went all the way to the mansion. So
it's all stuff that we're familiar with the show. And she's like, he's not really anywhere, which in the 92 series meant he's dead. Dead or
unconscious. Remember, there was something where somebody couldn't be detected, and they said it could be unconscious too. It was like oh, when Storm was missing in the alternate dimension thing.
And so I guess they figure like, well, they know that he can't teleport so far out of range that fast, so it's strange. It's peculiar to them that she can't find him. Scott looks over and sees like the villain crew hanging. He's like, I bet they had something to do with it, and just picks a fight with no actual evidence.
It's our Scott. We got our Scott.
Our Scott.
Yeah, it was the first episode where it felt like our Scott. So I feel like whoever the writer was on this one definitely got like a little bit more inspiration from the cartoon Scott as opposed to the comic Scott, who was not as known for being yelly, at least.
Yeah. And so they get into pretty much like a normal school fight. I think Avalanche starts to do like a little earthquake, but not enough to draw attention to from other people.
And then kids all started doing the stereotypical fight chant. Yeah. Which never actually heard in real life, if I'm being honest.
I don't know if I had either. I mean, we definitely egged on fights, but I don't know if we got started a chant or not.
I feel like the chant would attract attention of the teachers, which is what you didn't want to have happen.
Oh, yeah. There was a shot that I thought that Jean was just going to go Phoenix on everybody, but it looked like nothing actually happened because no one said anything about it. No one noticed. Maybe her hair just flared up.
Her hair started flaring, but it didn't flare. It was just like her hair was elevating. Which also, all the worries they had about people using powers and such, she was using a power. Hair does not normally do that. But of course, Scott isn't going to yell at her. Of all the people, he's not going to fucking yell at her. So
the fight gets broken up by Mystique, or I guess Principal Darkholm. Is it Darkholm? Yeah, Darkholm.
Yep.
And she gets pissed, and at first when she's like, "You two in my office," I thought she meant like Blob and Avalanche.
Yeah, same. I thought she was going to be like, "What are you guys starting a fight with the X-Men for?" And then it was like, "Oh no, she's actually disciplining the X kids."
Yeah, Scott and Jean.
And Rogue watched them as they were getting pulled away. Yeah.
Oh yeah, from like behind a locker or something.
You see that Kurt is still in this like weird ghost world thing, and he's like trying to concentrate, and he can't teleport out of it. Like he's trying to, and just won't let him do it.
We catch up with Toad in Principal Darkholm's office, and he's just shooting furniture, but he's also in like his supervillain outfit.
Yeah, he changed outfits. He went into like evil mode.
And he's just like having fun. I guess it's better he's shooting furniture than just random kids. Maybe.
Yeah, he hasn't actually gone to the murder phase yet.
Right. And then and we said this in the first episode that he was featured in. The really cool animation where he like hops out like a little frog of the room when he hears people coming.
Yeah, and her entire office is fucking missing.
I love that reaction. She's like, "What the hell? Like what's happening here?" Because it's so bizarre that even Mystique is confused. She's like...
Because she's, like, ready to fucking go as she's walking into the room with them. She starts to give, like, the anti-Xavier speech of, like, I don't care what kind of influence he has. She's not really revealing she's Mystique. It's just, like, I know your boy is powerful, but I don't care. And then instantly, like, the Mystique we know who loves all the finer things in life is just fucking livid that all of her stuff is not there.
Yeah. Then in the Middleverse, Kurt is walking around and he's like, "Why is furniture raining?" Because I guess it teleports above instead of.
It all felt like it dropped into the same spot within the Middleverse. Like, it's like there's a filing cabinet and stuff like that. And Scott sees Toad use the teleport gun on the car, and then all of a sudden Kurt has to dodge the car landing on him. And that's where Jean and Scott actually see Kurt dodging. They see they see that in the principal's office.
Yeah, he moves from like left to right.
Yeah.
It's great. And they're like, "What was that?" Like it looked like a ghost.
Yeah, I don't understand how the physics of the Middleverse work, to be totally honest, because it like teleported inconsistently but consistently. Like it teleported where Kurt was, but not where it would be later. It was weird.
Yeah.
Like it was teleporting to the center of that hallway. But Jean and Scott saw it in the principal's office.
I am 99% certain they did not consider this, but this would be an explanation that made sense. Is that, because of the way like planets and the Earth rotates and stuff, I've heard like a lot of like math friends say that if we do figure out time travel, we also have to figure out physics, because otherwise you would time travel to like the middle of space. So
the only counter I have to that is if you were going off of that theory, it would already be too far away. The moment and a half it took for it to happen, we would already be like miles out from where we were based on.
Yeah, that's why I'm like certain that they didn't consider that. But maybe that's the only explanation. Something had changed.
Which is why space is terrifying.
Right.
Because imagine it's like in a second, it's like, oh, now you're in the middle of space and Earth is just barreling away before you've even frozen to death like you're Star-Lord.
Yeah, right. In the Middleverse, Kurt runs into the kid from the computer screen,
who literally looks like Kelso from that 70s show.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
He was, a more tan-skinned version of Kelso to me.
Mm-hmm. And it confirms my suspicion from before. He's like, "Hey, I'm Forge." I was like, okay, I didn't want to say it, but like,
what made you think it was Forge? Because I actually didn't think that until it happened, until the reveal happened.
Maybe it's just baked into my brain because of the 92 series, but it's like his first appearance was on a computer screen. I don't know if necessarily that was his first appearance on 92, but it was like when I think of Forge in the 92 show, I think of him being on like a comm screen.
Interesting.
And
because it was not his first appearance. His first appearance was going into his lab with Days of Future Past stuff.
And just somebody with a lab, and then also like in my canon of knowledge, and this was so like a bizarre technical thing. That's what I know Forge from is like when it's like time travel or multiversal travel or whatever this is.
Right.
And it was a cool way. I mentioned this in the previous episode. This was a cool way to handle time traveling or what's traditionally time traveling characters because he can both be older and the same age now. The way they did this.
Yes.
So he's still the same age he was when he got teleported back there in 78.
Which we got to assume is probably junior, senior year, probably.
Mm-hmm. And he turns his arm into like a Swiss Army knife, basically.
So Kurt reveals his mutant power to Forge, because like Forge is like creeped out that there's another person there. And then Forge is like, oh, cool, me too. And he shows like his fully like... The arm transformed very much like Cyborg would in the Justice League movies to me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it came out of like an organic look to it, but it was way more advanced than what we saw from 92 Forge, where it was just like parts of his arm were robotic, but it was not like bioorganic expansion and stuff like that.
Yeah, because in 92, like he made those things, right? Like he made those limbs.
Yeah.
This one... he made it, but the vibe that it got from this first introduction was like this was like part of it, like this was like part of the mutation, like
in 92 when his leg gets messed up, like it's installed in him, but it's not like transforming and stuff like that. Yeah.
Back in the real world, Jean, Scott, Spike, and Kitty are chasing Toad, and I believe this is the first time Kitty's called Shadowcat, right?
Yes.
Jean?
Right, and for some reason, I didn't do skip intro on this one, and I did realize in the intro that they actually address her as Shadowcat as opposed to Kitty Pryde. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I don't know if you saw on the Instagram comments, there was a classic cover from when she was in her Shadowcat era, and she like basically made her own costume. Okay. And it was one of the ugliest things I had ever fucking seen. And I was like, who the hell is that? And they're like, that's Shadowcat. And I'm like, did nobody tell her this is the worst costume in history? Like, she literally had roller skates on her costume.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, that's more of like a Dazzler thing,
If anybody was going to have roller skates. Dazzler would eventually have it, but this was like when a teenager thinks it's cool, so at least Dazzler was like fashionable with it. This was just like, I don't know, a clown trunk blew up on her. It was bad. I was very much judging Shadowcat at that point.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And right now we're going to get a bunch of fast transitions between the Middleverse and the real world. In the Middleverse, Forge reveals to Kurt that he's been stuck there since 78 and that he doesn't know how, like, he doesn't know exactly how he got stuck there, but once he got stuck there, the lab was shut down, so he had no shot.
Well, he made the transdimensional projector, and he called this a pocket universe, which kind of hits a little bit on like the quantum realm from Ant-Man a little bit.
Yeah.
Very much a similar vibe to it.
Except nobody else is there. And you can see like kind of echoes of the real world. And
which also, I hope they explore this. How did that dude not go effing crazy being there for 20 years by himself, watching shit go around beyond him? And he was only able to go to certain parts of it. Like, he didn't get free, like, I live in a ghost world, but I could walk across the entire planet and see my family and stuff. It was like, no, he was stuck at like half the school.
Yeah, they did make like a little bit of a creepy comment because Kurt saw two cute girls walk by. The girls walk into the women's locker room, and Kurt's like, "How far does this go?" And Forge is like, "Just shy of the women's locker room." Like, good. Wait, where were you going with that? Like,
I mean, I think we all knew where the horny 14-year-old was going with it. So
I was like, oh man.
Do you think that was legit, or do you think he lied just to stop Kurt from being a scumbag?
I don't know. Oh, that's a good question now, because of how we know Forge is always like more level-headed, except for the one weird wimpy alternate Forge.
Alternate future Forge doesn't count.
That seems like something he would have handled. He'd be like, yeah, like don't do that. I don't want to like change the way I think about you right now, because you're the only other person I've seen in 20 some odd years.
But he also mentions that they can get out of there, but he needs help from the other side. So he's obviously never been able to do that by himself.
And with Kurt's teleportation powers, he said he can make a machine that'll allow him to teleport into the real world for just a moment. And we'll see later, he wasn't kidding about the moment.
No, it was a moment.
Yeah. Back in the real world, Jean does wrangle the machine from Toad in their whole pursuit in the woods, I guess. They're next to the school.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue reveals that so they're accusing Toad of doing it because he's the one that they see like shooting all the cars and stuff.
Which is don't get me wrong. Scott has falsely accused 2 people already. This actually makes sense. I could totally then be like, yeah, you shot that fountain as we were chasing you and it disappeared. We know you did this shit.
And then Rogue kind of confesses. She's like, no, it was me. I'm the one that did it. It wasn't his fault.
Very casually accepts the blame for it, too.
Yeah. And they let Toad go. She takes him to the lab. So this is where...
Well, they had to cut a deal. Because it was, if you don't let him go, I'm not going to tell you what happened to your friend.
Yeah. So
but
she really
it's not like they were going to kill him anyway. It's like, it's the fucking X-Men. They're the good guys.
Yeah. And she's living up to her name in this show so far. She's like, we can't tell what side she's on. She's not really on anybody's side. She's her own side.
Yeah. She's stuck with the bad kids, but she's not like teamed up with the bad kids.
Yeah, so she wants Toad to be let go, but you also get this air of like she's still trying to help Kurt if there's a chance that he's alive, because she takes them to the lab.
She probably feels guilty as shit, to be honest.
Right, that she just shot someone.
Who disappeared and disintegrated, yeah.
Yeah. And then once again, this is a Scott that we know. She's like, here's the machine, and he's like, cool, let's shoot it. No one questioned it. They were like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. The only person that does question it is Kitty. Kitty's like, I could phase into it, and it would just quietly go. And
right.
And Scott's like, no, let's shoot it. And what was it? Kitty's like, what is it with boys and explosions?
Yeah. Which, I mean, 100%. That was like fucking fireworks as a teenager. Sure, I will blow up old computers. Like, that was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we used to do those with old CRT monitors that were broken. Like, you take a sledgehammer to it.
Dude, I had a kid in my high school who literally made a potato cannon.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
One of our school projects were catapults. I still don't know. It was probably chalked up to science. But
Jesus Christ. Middle of the country, man.
Right?
Yep. Oh, yeah, we're going to build a trebuchet this week.
I have to find the picture. If I can find it, maybe we'll post it on like the stories on the account or something. There's a picture of all of us like making things that are way too dangerous for teenagers to have in real life, and it was in like the yearbook.
Like catapults? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like look at us play with catapults, and somehow none of us got injured from it. Luckily, Forge and Nightcrawler are in like the Middleverse area of that, where they can see the ghosts of the team almost blowing up the projector, and they're like, we gotta hurry. And Forge is like, what we need to do is reset the machine, so that when you go back, you have to really quick tell him that he needs to reset it, not destroy it, because I only have 2 AA's.
Yep.
And you go back for a moment.
That means he was saving those AA's for 20 years.
Long, right? Do AA's last that long?
God, no. They start spouting acid after like 6 months.
And so in the real world, Kurt does teleport in literally for a moment. He gets out.
Reset.
Don't.
And then he's back.
Yeah. So he doesn't even get the destroy part out. The team is debating because, Scott was like, oh, he says, don't reset. So we got to destroy it, right? Like,
no. Spike says that. Spike's like interpreting it as don't reset and wants to blow it up. And Scott is like, no, why would he say it in that order? And Spike is like, no, it's okay, blow it up.
And didn't Kitty have another comment here? She's like, boys and their explosions, man.
Yep.
And yeah, this is where Scott, this is why he's the leader, because he's like, okay, let's decode this. None of this checks out.
He will absolutely be a goofball, but when shit gets serious, he knows when to stop.
And then a sentimental moment because Kurt sees all this.
Yeah, he's able to watch it all happen. And then Scott is the one in charge of resetting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he like looking at all the controls. Luckily, they're all, I guess, understandable. So he's like, restart. That means the same thing as reset.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Sure it is. There were a lot of buttons for that thing to have like one reset button. I just want to point that out.
He hits it, and instead of just dropping Forge and Kurt back in the world like they had teleported into the Middleverse in, it was like an orb opened up.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand what the physics was supposed to be here, but it doesn't matter.
It was cartoon physics. There was definitely that we need to have a fight in the episode. That's what it was.
So Kurt's like, we need to go through, and Forge is like, we don't have enough battery or power to go through. And I'm like, I don't know how that works. It looks like there's a door over there you can walk through.
Yeah, you could just walk forward, but apparently not.
And right about then, Avalanche, Toad, and Blob show up.
With Avalanche in his outfit for the first time.
Yeah. I don't like this outfit.
I'm cool with a lot of redesigns. This one, candidly, just didn't do it for me.
Rogue is literally like, none of this shit has anything to do with me. Peace.
Yep.
And then leaves.
They actually drop Mystique's name, too. Like, they're like,
right.
oh, Mystique wants whatever.
And then they're like, you're working for Mystique. And she's like, I don't work for anybody. None of this
I'm
shit
out.
has anything to do with me. I'm out. And she leaves.
Yep.
Oh, no, this fight ain't mine. That's what she said.
Yep.
And so they fight. It's an X-Men battle. Like, one of the things that the show does really well is I think the fights are pretty entertaining.
They're usually pretty good choreography to them.
Mm-hmm.
They specify that she wants the gun for their team, basically.
Yeah.
Or they want to get the gun for her.
And then in the Middleverse, they find the car that dropped in there earlier. I thought they were just going to hijack the battery.
Same. I thought they were going to hijack the battery as well.
Mm-hmm. And then in the real world, the fight is still going. And then Kurt and Forge Ferris Bueller through the portal.
Right into Blob.
Yeah, the whole car, and it was like you would have murdered that kid. Like,
well, they literally even said, thank God I'm the Blob, basically.
Yeah.
Because anybody else would be dead.
And then Avalanche and Blob are like, yeah, we're tired of this. And they just leave.
Well, the thing they want to steal is broken. They're like, again, this group of the Brotherhood are not killers. They're pieces of shit, but they're not like, I guess it's just murder and that's pointless, so we're just going to get in trouble if we kill them right now.
Yeah, so they just casually leave, not even in a hurry, and Rogue is watching them take off from behind a tree. I think the purpose of that was to kind of show that she's still unsure. She's kind of gauging, like, if I have to lean one side or the other, like, which is it going to be? In true X-Men fashion, they're all sitting up in the parking lot, and in true X-Men fashion, they offer Forge the opportunity to join Xavier's Institute. And Forge has a good point. He's like, I should probably go find my parents. And he cracks the joke, I'm 20 years late for my curfew.
Not to go dark. Do we want to assume that his parents are still... Their kid disappeared in this area 20 years ago. Even if they're still alive, do you think they literally, like, lived in the same house? Like, that's a 2-block walk from the school?
Yeah.
Like, I would probably be like, I need to restart my life somewhere else.
Right. I think Cyclops gives him the number.
They give him a phone number, yeah.
So I feel like we're going to see him again. And once again, I like that this was kind of an interesting way to keep Forge both knowledgeable in the wisdom, like his age of his wisdom.
Yeah, because even though he's the appearance of a 18-year-old-ish, he at least has 20 additional years of when he was stuck in the Middleverse. And you get the impression, even if he was not doing stuff externally, he still would have been able to, like, sit in on classes and hear conversation. So if there's anybody who's ever going to get stuck in a school and benefit from it, it's Forge.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That has to be someone's hell, right? Just being stuck in
It's got to be certain people's hell. But yeah,
Be
Forge...
stuck in high school and not be able to die.
If you're stuck in high school for like 6 months that you can't leave, like, how long before you say, fuck it, I'm never getting out?
Yeah. Jeez. Then Scott apologizes to everyone, and they're all surprised. They all have the reaction. Their jaws drop. They're like,
yep. And then Kurt apologizes for being a goofball.
My note here is, this is not quite what happened, but my note here says, then they decide to mind wipe Duncan Matthews so they can get Kitty into the party.
So before they do that, there is a moment of Scott trying to, like, he's like, oh yeah, we're going to head back and we're going to do a level 3 simulation on the danger room. And everybody's like, oh, god damn it, he's back. And then he goes, psych. And I'm like, stop it right now. Stop with the fucking pun. I hate the pun. But everybody has a good laugh. And then they're like, yeah, we're the X-Men. We'll get you into the party. And I think, to your point, Jean is going to make Duncan think that she's a sophomore.
Something, yeah, or they're gonna sneak her in some other way. Yeah, but I really feel like they're gonna manipulate someone's mind, because that seems to be like the pattern for them.
Well, they're learning from this version of Xavier.
Right? He has no boundaries.
Yeah. And then there was the animation flaw, which sometimes we've seen this, where one person is animated and the other person's voice happened, and that happened because they go, let's roll. And it was Kurt's voice with Cyclops animated.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't notice that. I must have looked away by then.
Yeah, because you don't pause the way I do. You're usually typing your notes in real time.
I'm typing in real time, unless something crazy happens and I have to, like, dissect 100 things that are happening at once. And also, by this point of the episode, that's pretty much it. That's why they drive into the I would say sunset, but into, like, the night.
Twilight.
Whatever, to go to the party.
Yeah.
That's the end of the episode.
And that's the end. Yeah.
But I see why Scott liked Scott and Ice Wonder liked this. It was kind of a fun way to, once again, we're still introducing characters. It doesn't feel redundant, because that's really, it'd be really easy to just feel like it's repeating itself for however many times they're going to do this to introduce characters to us.
Right.
But the whole Middleverse thing, even if the Middleverse never comes back up, just this idea that there's a pocket dimension that Forge has been stuck in for decades, is a unique to Forge origin story for him, for lack of better words. It was also an adventure for the team.
I thought it was interesting because when we were trying to figure out what the episode was that Scott wanted to be on, I think the way you worded it to me is like, there's something about a virtual reality episode. I'm like, I am not seeing that in any of the fucking descriptions right now.
Well, and that's how Scott worded it to me. That's why I sent it to you that way. And I was like, was this the one? He's like, I think so. I was like, cool. Well, we were hoping it would be a later season, so it'd be like, after you were like long married or whatever. It's in the first, like, it's like in the first batch of episodes for this.
Yeah, like we literally started recording Evolution in June, and we're at the end of June right now to record this. So it's like, oh wow, we literally gave ourselves like no runway.
Yeah, but it was a fun episode. I dug it, and it's funny. I feel like one of the characters that got probably the most complex development was Rogue, because is more evidence of like she's not really on anyone's side. She's just kind of figuring it out, and she's looking out for herself, which rightfully so.
Yeah, I kind of get the vibe that she's at least in season 1, going to be the most complex character. For some reason, that is totally the feeling I get off of her.
They're actually making her live up to her name in this series. I loved her in the 92 series, but she wasn't really Rogue. She was a team player. Yeah, she was all about the team at that point. Yeah.
The only time she went rogue, so to speak, was when she like instantly fell back in love with Cody and is like, fuck my responsibilities.
Right. Maybe that was the hint, was like before the X-Men she was Rogue, and that's why they called her that.
Yeah. When she was ruining Carol Danvers' life.
Right. And Cody's.
Well, definitely Cody's. Because in this one, it's like, we got the impression that when she releases the power is when the people go back. So Cody wasn't in the hospital for that long. Versus X-Men 92, Carol Danvers was in that coma for at least 10 to 15 years, I want to say.
Yeah. Any last thoughts or fun tidbits?
No, we hit all the tidbits as we were going. The only other thing that stood out was Forge at the end when they Ferris Bueller the car into Blob. He comments about the airbags. I'm like, what are these? And looked it up. Airbags came out originally in 1971. They were not standard in cars until 1999, but it wouldn't have been unheard of for somebody to know what an airbag was. And especially like, you have the kid who's making like teleportation guns for the science fair. Mm-hmm. He likely would have been one of the ones who would understand what an airbag was at that point. But
yeah, what do they call them? Like re-entry cushions or something?
Yeah, Kurt made a joke about it being like, like for a crashed like ship or something like that. Essentially,
standard till 99. I guess that does.
They were not required in all cars until 1999.
I think it's that number on paper seems right. It just emotionally doesn't feel right that it was that long ago. It's kind of like when you see stuff from the early 80s when seatbelts became required.
Dude, there's been an Instagram reel that has popped up a couple times over the last month or two, and it was talking about how at one point they actually needed to ban people from drinking while they were driving.
I remember that.
And there are the people who are complaining about that. They're like, yeah, they're taking away our rights. It's communism. The guy can't have a beer or two while he's driving home from work. Not you can stop at a bar and have a drink. It was the literally while driving beer can in your mouth.
Yeah, history repeats itself. It's always the same argument.
Yep.
Like
nobody knows what communism is the one thing I keep learning about our history as a country. Nobody knows what communism is.
That and what rights actually are.
Yeah, that too.
Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. And I didn't say it last episode, but we don't have any official sources of information for the show. So if you watch it in real time and actually know more stuff about it while it's airing, leave those in the comments. I'll have to look it up.
You did shout it out at the end of episode 2. I do remember you doing that. Yeah.
Our friend Scott had mentioned something about there being some commercials featuring Jean Grey that I forgot to look up before this one, but I'll mention it next time.
Great.
If you know any like cool tidbits about that? Like that'd be cool to have because we don't have like a book that they wrote about this show.
I mean, last one we had 2 books.
Right. And if you like what you heard, we appreciate a rating on the podcast app of your choosing. Once again, that's the best way for us, besides word of mouth, to find new listeners. And it sounds like a lot more people than we thought are really into this Evolution show. So we love to find more fans because we're becoming fans as we're watching it.
Yep.
And those platforms are Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And I still don't know what CastBox is, but if you're on there, more power to you.
There's also some new podcast service that popped up when it says the sources of our listeners that I have never heard of even beyond the Castbox stuff of you not knowing it. I literally have never seen it before.
Welcome our Middleverse listeners then.
Good old Middleverse.